we're about to get a new Tron movie. So there is a new Tron game. Tron Catalyst, it's a top-down isometric game from Bithell Games. They worked on Thomas Was Alone, which is an amazing game. They also did the previous Tron game. This one is a action RPG, I guess. You play a program called EXO, and you've been caught up in a sort of conspiracy due to a glitch in the Tron world, the grid, I believe it's called, and it causes you to continually reboot into the grid. So it's got a kind of Groundhog Day vibes to the whole thing. And so the narrative follows EXO as she escapes from the arena, and then you basically run and light cycle around the world of Tron, hacking and slashing and just moving from one story beat to the next. It's this, as I said, the second game in the Tron universe from the team. They also worked on a sort of more narrative-focused, almost visual novel game. The previous one, I forget the actual. It was Tron Suffix. I forget what it was called. And that had a bit more of a deck.
Tron again.
Yeah, deck building and very, very narrative-focused. And these developers clearly have their heads very deep into the lore of Tron and this world and franchise, which is cool because I really like Tron. I like the idea of Tron. I really wanted a good Tron game since the Legacy film, 2010 Tron Legacy, which has aged really well. That film, people have really gone back and said it's a lot more fun than they remember. And yeah, this game basically tries to tell a new story in that universe. It does an admirable job of giving the feeling like you're in a Tron movie or a Tron game. It has all the sort of appropriate dark neon art style, sort of very undercooked, but an electro kind of synth soundtrack that's there as well. Nothing on Daft Punk, obviously. And then there's the aforementioned narrative and story, which this is very focused on. And it's all on point. There's all the lore stuff. There's the thing about Tron universe is that they're in a computer and they call the users, which are gods, which are the people who use them, they're all programs. Like, it's super naff, but it's still cool. And I think Disney did a really good job of rebooting it and making it feel kind of like slick and sexy, and so that's what this is cashing in on. So yes, in that sense, it looks and sounds and should feel like you're in a video game. It's just not a very fun video game, unfortunately. Yeah, I was trying to hold off on that, but this really does give off the vibe of a kind of rush-to-market game that feels like it's very much seeing that deadline of Tron Red. What's the next one coming out with Jared Leto in it? Whatever the next...
Art of something?
No, it's like
Artemis?
Phoenix or something, or yeah, someone in chat will know. But the next Tron movie that's coming out, which I'm kind of looking forward to. I think they really wanted to get this out and build up a bit of hype before that film came out. Ares. Thank you, Tron Ares. So they're really cashing on that.
Tron't. That's
Just
gold.
Tron't. Yeah, in motions, it feels like a video game, but it kind of feels like a top-tier mobile game, I guess. The controls, the combat, everything is just sort of half-cooked. There's like some really good voice acting, but it's only in 10% of the cutscenes. There are some like sort of still image cutscenes with really good voice acting, and then 90% of this game is overwritten. I like story, I like narrative, I like text, but it's overwritten, and the way it all just spews up on screen in between the action sequences is really overbearing, especially when they're using all the jargon from the Tron universe. It just feels quite wanky. And the missions themselves actually all just boil down to go there, pick this up and return, rinse and repeat. And especially in a game that, while this kind of looks impressive, the environments are all incredibly samey, and there's not really any distinguishing features to tell that you're in the downtown district or you're in the harbour or you're in the upper class area. They all just look the same.
Open world?
Open areas, hub areas, that kind of thing. And you do move from chapter to chapter that moves you through different ones. But yeah, it's asking you to head to the office block in the upper district, and you're like, I couldn't tell you what that is, especially at this angle. So the game just devolves into following the objective marker almost the entire game. I was speed playing it by just chasing the objective marker at one point. And yeah, so in that sense, it's a totally serviceable video game. But the sin here, I think, is just squandering the potential of the Tron license. Like, you know, and it's a license that hasn't really ever hit its full potential, I think, in a video game.
Not even close.
No,
Okay, well, I want to ask you this question.
Please.
How much potential does Tron have to be good?
Yeah, that's a solid question.
Because I would argue None?
Well, here's the thing. Like, Tron is based on a video game, and in that game, famously, they had the disc combat and they had the light cycle racing. This game has both those things really lackluster. There's not even the ability to, at the start of the game, on the light cycle, do the arena, the cool Tron light cycle game. It's a really, really floaty bit of transport that doesn't really ever use the walls projected out the back of the bikes at all. No, I think it's there. It's got the potential. It's got a really cool art style. It's got a cool aesthetic. It's got a cool soundtrack. Yeah, it feels really undercooked. There was the 2010 Tron game. I wrote this one down. I did. No, I didn't. Shit. There was the tie-in game for the movie. I think that now looks better by comparison to what this game is.
Oof.
Tron Evolution.
Thank you, Josh. Tron Evolution. Compared to like. There's just not much that to do in this game rather than follow this one narrative and just run around and beat these sort of one-note characters down. Especially after playing a game like The Precinct recently. I know I'm just comparing camera angles, but like that felt like a world that I was in and I could explore and there was so much to do. This just has
But
none
question,
of that. Please.
isn't that because Earth is interesting and the Tron video game is stylish as fuck, but is empty? It's barren by design.
I'm so on board with
Yeah,
that.
you're right. You are.
And so, like,
So-
there's,
so- but- so the
there's no
combat-
air, there's no new. This is amazing when you first walk into it. Even when I first started looking at this footage, I was like, cool. And 10 minutes later, I'm like,
This looks like
a
shit.
shame.
kind of
Yeah.
over it.
No, I think you're totally right. I guess I'm not looking for a world that I want to live in, but I am looking for a style of combat that would be amazing to do, like disc juggling and really cool combos and like put all the video game stuff into
This
it and it
looks
would
very
feel
samey.
natural.
Well,
There's a really small skill tree in this. Like it's pathetic. There's like 2 nodes that bounce off 2 other nodes. I ended up actually just leveling up the window for counterattacks and that all counters do 1-hit kills. I broke the game. I basically just walked around doing one button pressing combat and killing everyone with 1 hit. So yeah, it's just
I
undercooked.
Honestly, just feel bad for any person that is tasked with doing a soundtrack for any sort of Tron game or movie, because it's never gonna fucking amount to Daft Punk.
I agree, but it's also really
always
like
gonna be
quiet.
compared
It's
to
really
that.
quiet. I
Yeah.
tried to turn up on full. It's just it never really tries to crank it, and like it should really embrace some of the things that the Tron universe can do well, and this
The Troniverse.
just
I think you're
Troniverse.
overselling the Troniverse.
Yeah.
I also think like it's cool. It's so cool, but it's like 2 colors, and like maybe action RPG ain't it for this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Make the
think it
light
was,
cycle racing game, or make the disc frisbee
Exactly.
brawler.
Make it really simple.
Yeah.
Like one
which
thing.
is what that 2010 tie-in was. They were like, let's just.
That's all it needs to
They were
be.
like, this
Yeah.
thing just writes
And-
itself, and they've.
And those are the best kind of like tie-in games where they don't try to overshoot it and make this like big sprawling game with like many mechanics. It's just like do one thing
Or
right
in this case, the
and immerse
narrative.
the person in the world.
Yep.
And don't try to over flesh it out.
I also just feel like the idea for Tron back in the day seemed really cool and out there, because like nobody'd really done everything's computer, and now it's done in a myriad of different ways better.
Yeah.
You know?
Have you did you guys ever play Death Row? I had it was like the Xbox magazine had a demo of it and I played the shit
Yes.
out of it. It was a kind of basketball game. You
Yep.
played like it was like 4v4 Future Sport,
Sick.
Death Sport,
Yep.
a disc blade that you would like cut each other up with. But then the
Yeah.
idea was to move it up the court and then throw it through a hoop that was down instead of that way. And so it's like, I know, fucking crazy. But it's like that kind of thing. I'm just like, I'm always like, that's
Totally.
what Tron should be doing. Just
Yeah.
like something really
You're
simple.
right.
Simple arena
but
kind of
great.
shit.
And it
Yeah.
should be action focused. I think you might have just seen there just the sort of swaths of text coming down the side, like, and it is all jargon and characters without any identifying voices or notifications on who is who. So you just that falls apart. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out as well that aforementioned reboot mechanic that I mentioned that seemed like, oh, maybe that'd be really clever. That it's like she keeps rebooting,
Yeah.
and that you can bring knowledge or things that you've unlocked back into the world. It is really poorly handled. Basically, you'll just do everything and the game will say, press a button now to reboot. You'll go back to a checkpoint and then you'll just see characters that'll be like, they'll be like, hey, how do you know about me? And you press a button being like, don't worry about it. And you walk off. Like it's really mishandled. It was almost like the developers were trying to force in a really clever idea that you
Yeah.
could kind of death loop style. You could do multiple runs and you could use knowledge to like mess around with people or set traps for people or do interesting things. It just turns into getting an unlock for your key and then going back to the start and using that key to unlock somewhere else. It's pathetic, actually.
Is it easy to
Wow.
pick up the jargon over time, or does the game just kind of go, "You're a Tron head, right? You'll get this."
I
'Cause,
guess
like-
if you found it compelling, but it starts dropping some of the jargon, and you just kind of go like, oh yeah, I guess that's what they mean by like. I can't even think of it.
Plug
but it's
me
like,
back in, man.
But it means you have to use an extra 10% on, like you have to use 110 or 20% when you're reading it to sort of digest what they're talking about, and it's not very interesting in the
Yeah.
first place. So it's a real struggle. And again, that makes it sound like I just tuned out, but it was
This
like
looks so cheap, man.
they did the previous narrative game that was
This is
almost
very
all this,
precinct,
but it looked
actually.
so much sexier. It was a visual novel, and it had all these cool like sort of depth effects, and it had like sort of rendered characters, and it was like a Telltale game, but you would meet all
Yeah.
these characters, and they were in these cool environments. This feels like what they wanted to make the whole game, and they ran out of budget or they ran out of time, and they made the rest of it.
Or they
just,
were told to make it more gamey.
yeah, and the rest of it is all just that autoplay dialogue down the side.
It's like
and
a sad reality that unless you're Disco Elysium, you can't really get away with.
I genuinely
got
feel bad for them because I
heading
know
heavy
they're
on
a good
visual
studio,
novel.
and I feel like this was just them going, we have Disney as a client. We've been tasked with making a Tron game. What can we pull together? And I bet someone in there was like, what if I had a reboot mechanic? And they're like, it needs to be done next week. So yeah, unfortunately, this really isn't a fantastic game. Look, for the Tron heads out there, if you were just like, I'm dying to play something in this universe.
And
it's-
who are you?
Yeah, who are you? But it's like, it's...
You're talking to
I
him
thought
right
I
now.
was. It's passable, but it kind of feels like a game that a parent would give a kid at Christmas, not knowing what it is. Kind of like
This looks like it
Going
could have been
somewhere?
anything, and they just skinned it as a Tron game.
Yeah.
that too.
Like,
That's
and-
totally.
And it would have been better as anything else because there would have been biomes.
Or colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, Tron Catalyst, Tron average.
It's not
Is-
Tron.
Tron't.
Huh?
Tron't.
Yeah.
Tron do it.
I
Tron.
think
Tron't.
Will Wade
Tron't.
have said it best when they said, Tron't.
Tron.
Tron't do it.